As many of you know, my name is Stephen Fetter. I manage the United in Learning program for the General Council Office, and it is a thrill and a delight to welcome you into this gathering tonight. This gathering for gathering, and to have a chance to celebrate the new website and the people behind it, and to get a taste of what it can do and how it's going to change things for all of us. So we are absolutely delighted to have so many of you here. We've got 128 on the line right now. We've got over 230 who registered for this. So I know some of them are watching the recording, and some of them may be having trouble getting in. And, it's just part of being in this online world, right? But we're glad you're here. Want to thank you for working through ChurchX, which is our new platform for hosting webinars. I know it's a little different from the old website that we used to use. It's more secure, it has more options, and we're looking forward to being able to unroll a wider variety of programming in it. But it always takes us a little time to get used to after 10 years working with one website to switch over to the next. So glad you're here. And, if you had trouble getting in the way Matt does, then please, drop me a line, let me know what happened, because we really are trying to figure out how to make this as easy as we can. It's so much more secure to run a Zoom meeting when everybody has to log in with a password. And then you never have to worry about trolls and surprises and that kind of stuff. So that's one of the big reasons why we do it, and it means that our meetings are more comfortable for all of us, and it's also a place where we can collect the recordings and the handouts and the PowerPoints and all of that stuff. So lots of people are saying it worked for them. A couple of people found it difficult. I understand that. And, happy to have a one-on-one conversation with you on the phone if you have suggestions or ideas or concerns. Want to make this new system work as absolutely as well as we can. And I think we're still figuring it out. I'm going to invite you, if you please, to turn off your mics unless you're actually speaking. With now 141 people in the room, we just can't open mics and have questions. But we're going to use the chat so that people can write their questions to the chat. Matt's just asked for my email address. Now, thank you, Jennifer. Then I don't have to type it because I'm putting typos in while I'm trying to talk and type at the same time. Yes, thank you, Jennifer. So as I say, use the chat for questions and comments as we go along. Part of my job is going to be to kind of curate the questions and collect them together and pose them to Susan and Tammy Jo as we go along. So love to have as many comments and questions as you'd like to add into the chat, but we just can't open the mics because there isn't time for all of that. Before we bring up Tammy Jo and Susan, though, I want to turn to my colleague, Lydia. And I'm going to bring you up on the screen here, Lydia. I love working with Lydia. She's always so positive. And of all the people on staff at the General Council Office, this is her baby. This is her project. This is the one that she has shepherded through and supported and been the cheerleader for so long. And it is appropriate and delightful to welcome you, Lydia, and ask you to kick us off tonight.
Well, thank you. And it's so lovely to be here. And I really got to say, it's a complete team effort. And I'm so glad that Susan and Tammy Jo are here to share. Susan, Tammy Jo, and Catherine are the heart of Gathering, and the things that they have in their minds were just so wonderful. So thank you, everyone, for coming to celebrate GatheringWorship.ca. Woohoo! Yay. Mm-hmm. I was going to share an opening prayer from Gathering, from the current issue, and this prayer is beautiful, and it's by Lee Sinclair from St. David's United Church in Alberta. So thank you, Lee. I don't know if you're here, but thank you for this prayer. Let us pray. Let us pray. Called by you, Creator, Christ, and Spirit, we seek to be bold and connected church. We are part of a large group of communities of faith, diverse, courageous, hope-filled communities, united in deep spirituality, inspiring worship, and daring justice. Help us, loving God, to discern our place in this church as individuals and as communities of faith, right here, right now. Amen. Welcome to the village that is my house.
Thanks, Lydia. I was madly looking to see whether somebody else had left a microphone on. That's one of the things I'm enjoying about the way we're doing church these days, is that we're seeing into people's homes in powerful ways, and people are so multifaceted. So thanks for that, and thanks for welcoming us into your home. So let me bring up Susan and Tammy Jo here, and we'll just add them into our conversation. I have had such fun talking with the two of you about Gathering Worship online. We've kind of gone around the barn a little bit, and we've got a bit of an agenda, folks, that the three of us are going to talk about. But we're also really open to your questions. And these two, I mean, we're going to spend some time to start with talking about words, and then we're going to talk about music. But I thought we should bring both of them up here on the screen, because they feed off each other. And so, you know, while we may talk about words for a while and then music for a while, really, they both have important things to say all the way through. So before we even jump into that, though, I had a chance on Saturday morning to talk with John Ambrose. Now, John was, I think, really the person who invented gathering, way back when it wasn't even called gathering. And he and I talked for much longer than I have a chance to share with you tonight about the beginnings of getting it all together, which is what it was called back in 1974. And he gave me a whole long history, which, you know, if you're interested in a 10-minute video, I would be glad to play for you, but not tonight. I did some editing on it, and I just wanted to bring up just a short clip as we talked about where gathering came from and how it's going now. So, John, over to you.
We put together the first fall edition of Getting It All Together in 1974, and it was largely pretty rough stuff, in that it was just paper which we put together, tried to give it an artistic look with the help of the art department, and then mailed it to every pastoral charge. It was no charge, it was no cost for them. This would be something we would do for the next at least year or so. And the invitation to actually now contribute to the content of Getting It All Together. It took a couple of issues going out for people to gain confidence that maybe they had something to share, and the materials then started pouring in, which presented a new but delightful challenge of sifting and sorting and sometimes editing. We always allowed ourselves to do some editing just to enhance the content. The more we kept this going, the wider the contribution in terms of content expanded, in terms of children's time, in terms of prayers, in terms of special ideas for services, celebrating these special occasions. I know a lot of my American colleagues tell me that they are also subscribers to Gathering. Like it's a resource that seems to be fairly unique in North America in terms of just a down-to-earth, quarterly, practical resource. Mm-hmm. They're doing a fine, fine job. Both of them deserve awards for keeping this going, because it's a demanding thing. I think also the two of them are such that they are stimulated, and they are themselves kind of enriched by the experience of working with the material. And they've had wonderful support in preparing the music, so it looks on the page very clear. I would just say thank you for what they're doing, and keep it up, keep it up. Probably not for another 50 years, but just even another 10 would be a great gift to the church.
So there's a challenge for you. Do you have 50 years left in you?
I was just listening to Bob McDonald, who's done Corks and Corks for 30 years and plans to keep going. So there's some inspiration. But yeah, thank you to John. I have one of the first copies. I've been collecting back copies, and I have one of the first copies. And we're celebrating 48 years this year, and planning now for our 50th anniversary. So if people have ideas for 50-year celebration, just another celebration we can enjoy.
Now, aren't you glad you don't have to write all the content yourself?
Absolutely.
Imagine dipping into your files to pull the whole magazine together.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's what makes Gathering. It is the worship resources that are submitted from everybody. And we can't do it without the submissions. So please, all of you here, if you've never sent anything, if you have sent anything, please send stuff, because this really is a grassroots publication. It's what is the gem of this whole magazine and now website.
Well, and that's what we want to talk about tonight, because you really are making an enormous shift. Now, you're not letting go of the magazine. I mean, I know you're still doing the magazine, and I goofed when I first wrote the publicity for this because I didn't understand. No, the magazine is staying. But what's changing? What's going on here, Susan?
Yeah, so the print magazine is staying. We know that people rely on it, use it. But we have been asked for years, almost 20 years, to do something that brought it online. Now, when we first started talking about that, we were talking about providing a CD-ROM. Can you imagine that?
Wow.
With every issue. But people were asking, they wanted to be able to have a way of not having to retype everything and getting it on and then being able to edit it for themselves. And so people asked and we answered. And I really want to give credit to the Gathering Advisory Board, both present and past. We have a group of about 7 people that work with Tammy Jo and Lydia and I to really reflect on what we need on both website now and in magazine. And I especially want to attribute David Sparks and Bob Root, who are past chairs of the Gathering Advisory Board, because they lobbied and asked and kept the vision going, even at times where we thought we'd have to let go of it. So it's a tribute to all of them for making sure we're here tonight. But what we have now in the website is so much more than just the ability to have a copy and paste of the prayers. We have search features. So every once in a while, I'll get an email. It'll say, Susan, I remember that in Gathering a few years back, there was this, and they'll describe it a little bit with a few words. Can you find it for me? Can you tell me where to look for it? Well, now you have the ability to search for yourself and to find those things and to tag them when you find them. This first time you see something and you love it, you can tag it as a favorite and have access to it, or you can put it in a service. So we've now expanded so many more things that you can do with the Gathering website, taking the print resource and just blossoming with what you can do.
So how far back do you go? I mean, you're not just putting up stuff quarterly. You're pulling out back issue stuff like Hillary's asking about. How far back does it go?
Right now, we're about 3 years back, but we're going to keep adding. Our goal is to get 6 or even 9 years back. So there's sort of always a 9-year cycle. When we put the prayers in, they stay there. The Sunday by Sunday stuff will sort of keep cycling every 9 years, but there'll always be back issues there. But our aim is to have sort of 9 years back, but the prayers are just going to keep expanding as we put stuff in. And if you don't see something now, it'll come up. I've got some of the Gathering Advisory Board going back through issues back to 2014 and pulling out the gems, the treasures that we can add in.
How many people do you have adding stuff to the website? You must have an enormous team in the background here.
Well, Tammy Jo, Lydia, Catherine, and I are the primary people adding stuff to the website. And that's partly because we have to develop a consistency of how we add themes and scriptures and create the search functions. So we've been putting a lot of hours in the last year to get things up and going, and we'll keep putting hours in, but it's a work of love because we know the gift that it is to the church.
Tammy Jo, you're very quiet. You weren't this quiet last week.
Susan's doing such a great job. As Susan mentioned, I think, just the value in having all of the things that are searchable is going to be really amazing, to go back several years and find those gems, find a prayer or find a piece of music that totally fits exactly what you're looking for just by you doing some searches. Yeah, it's taken a lot of time. I'm going to also thank Hillary Donaldson, who's done a bunch of adding into the website as well. It takes a whole village to build something like this, and she's also been part of the team, as well as the IT team from General Council. They've been miraculous in getting this site built and teaching us all how to use it and how to add things, and it's been marvelous.
So you keep talking about searching, both of you. What do you mean? How does that work? Am I not just going to sign up and see stuff for this Sunday anymore? How's this searching thing working?
Well, you're going to see some examples from Bill Gillard, who's part of the IT for the United Church. He's going to give some demonstrations later. But Tammy Jo and Hillary and I have spent, and Tillman Jessen, yes, have spent a great deal of time in the last year going through and tagging materials. So you will be able to search by author, by scripture, by themes. We have over 300 themes. You will be able to search. Well, Tammy Jo's going to talk about music in a little bit. We've tagged every hymn, every prayer, so that it gives you a multiple of ways to search. You can search by type of prayer, and by season, by liturgical date. So it will, when you search for, say, hope, you're going to get so much more than just one prayer. Okay,
that helps, because I think there are some folks who are not familiar with the word tagging. And when I grew up, tag was a game that we used to play where somebody was it. So what do you mean when you're tagging a prayer? What are you doing?
Well, that's part of the learning that we've had this year, is all this language that Bill and Ray had to teach us about it. Tagging is to give labels, to give certain categories. So we go through, what are the themes that go with this prayer? What are the scriptures that go with this prayer? And one of the things that we discovered, like in the back of Voices United, we have, and more voices, we have indices. But, paper indices only have so many pages. And so what we discovered is there's some hymns, for example, that never appear in the indices of Voices United, never appear under scripture, never appear under theme. We've gone through and made sure that every prayer, every hymn has multiple themes associated, multiple scriptures, season you can use it in, special days you can use it in, and listed all of those, so that when you're searching, so for Camping Sunday, for example, when you're searching, suddenly you're going to have hymns, you're going to have prayers. If there's complete services, they'll pop up and you can start selecting what you need to use and what appeals to you.
So you're not just using the indexes that were in the back of the hymn book. You've done this all brand new?
You bet.
Holy cow, that must have been a lot of work.
Now we built on the indices that are there. But yeah, we went through and I took portions of it. Tammy Jo took portions of it. So for about 1,500 hymns, I think so far, we had 26 columns for each hymn, putting in the categories and various ways of looking at it. So yeah, we've been busy.
So I know that Bill is going to show us some how-to stuff later on. So folks, if you've got questions about how do I actually use this search function, but just hold your horses, because we're going to do a bit of a demo later. But that's very exciting to hear that you've added to the indices. Now, what if somebody says to you next week, this hymn really ought to have been tagged with the word hope, and you didn't do it. You made a mistake. You've left it out. Is it too late to change that now?
No, we're always open to ideas, to suggestions. We can go back in and edit. And again, that's what makes gathering, is that having people's input, people's ideas. If there's if there's a scripture, you go, this scripture goes with this prayer and you didn't put it in, let us know. There's a beautiful button that, again, Bill will show you, the submit button, and we want you to use it. You can submit ideas, you can submit input, you can submit prayers, music. Please use it.
One of the things that John Ambrose said in that little piece that we played, he talked about the number of American colleagues he has who subscribe to the magazine and who love the resource. And yet I have a sense that this is a very United Church of Canada kind of resource too. What makes this us?
Well, very much the content is edited according to United Church of Canada style guide and guidelines. And that's something that people have come to trust. We hear that over and over again from, people, subscribers from other countries. I don't know right now, but we've had up to subscribers from up to 9 other different countries and some significant numbers from Australia, New Zealand, Bermuda, Great Britain, that subscribe. But what they say to us is they subscribe because they trust the way we edit and trust the United Church ethos that's reflected in how we edit, both the prayers and the music.
Well, and I think you bring a kind of justice, diversity, equality kind of lens to things too, don't you? I mean, it's not, it really, you are, I mean, you were saying to me, for example, that you wanted to make sure that all the different ethnic origins of hymns and prayers were noted, so that if somebody's putting together a worship service, they have the option of putting together something that comes from a variety of different cultures and places.
Yeah, and especially in the music, I mean, everything that we enter, we associate a cultural origin with it, because nothing is culture free. So everything has a culture, and we're identifying that up front. That's part of the anti-racism approach of the United Church, is to be upfront that we all have a culture. But the wonderful thing about it is you could go in and say, I want to create a service with Korean hymns and prayers. Now, we need more content, especially in the prayers from different cultures. I welcome that. Tammy Jo welcomes it for the music too. And, yeah, you can search, and it's amazing what pops up when you put in that you're looking for something from a certain country.
So we want to talk about music soon. But just before we switch over to the music, tell us about some of the things that people will find on the website that there wasn't room for in the magazine, or that there still isn't room for in the magazine.
Yeah, still is. Yeah, we're 88 pages, and we work hard to fill those 88 pages. And Tammy Jo and I sometimes arm wrestle to see who gets an extra page or two here or there. But there'll be more full worship services because we can provide those. We're not providing sermons. We've talked about that. We really believe that full sermons are contextual, but we'll give you ideas to sermons. We'll give you ideas for alternative to sermons, but you'll find more full worship services, more dramas and monologues, longer pieces, reflective pieces that we couldn't put in gathering. And just, we're going to keep adding to the site. Again, that back material that you might not think about going back and looking at, it'll be there and will suddenly pop up in a search. We had the drama and more files that I was sending out just by email. Those are now integrated into the bonus material that's going onto the site, directly onto the site. And so you'll have access to that as well.
Cool, thank you. This is just the chance to have access to all of that back stuff is really powerful too, and all of those. I mean, it sounds so exciting. We could keep talking, but we want to talk about music too. Before we do that, want to bring up Bill Curvin. Bill, I can't bring you up till you turn your camera on. There he is, but he's here with us tonight and wanted to add his own comments live. So I didn't have a chance to interview him ahead of time. I have no idea what he's going to say, but we'll cut him off if he says anything bad.
You've got the mute button, so use it anytime you want. Yeah. No, I just want to say how excited I am about this. I mean, among the things that excites me, Sue and Tammy Jo and Lydia, is just this very rich tradition of crowdsourcing our liturgical life before we even knew the word crowdsourcing, right? That's just been built into getting it all together and gathering, and now GatheringWorship.ca. But the other thing that's sort of evolved along the way is kind of curated crowdsourcing. In the sense, it's also curated sourcing, because the circle goes round and everybody starts catching on to the values and the ethos. And so more material is sent in with those values and that ethos reflected with all that implies. And so it just keeps getting enriched deeper and more broadly all the time. So I'm very excited about that. And I'm also interested to reflect on how the whole thing started with John and his partner Catherine at their dining room table with multicolored pages that they sent out to everybody, and it was very much it was also a catalyst, and that was also the technology, right? When John was doing this 50 years ago, we were just getting used to Gestetner mimeograph. And that allowed people to have different prayers every week and new prayers and different forms of participation. So I think there's also an interesting through line on the technological front, from the very origins of getting it all together to today. We're responding to web and cloud-based and tagging and search engines, and that also is a catalyst for this really vibrant dynamic of taking the work of the people seriously and putting the technology at the service of that vision of liturgy. So that's just by way of a short thanks be to God.
Well, and thank you, Bill, for your support and for joining us here tonight. Let's move and talk a little bit about music, because I really am trying to keep the program to an hour tonight. So there will be lots that we don't get to. But Tammy Jo, I think the music editor's job is just continuing to expand over the years. This is growing from a very small piece to a really significant one.
Yeah, and certainly the hours put in cataloging all our hymn books over, many Excel sheets also has been a lot of big contributions, but I think really worthwhile.
Everybody dizzy.
As Susan mentioned, some of the things from the hymn books are usual and searchable again, things like title and first line and author and composer and all those kinds of things, some of the categories, but then we've added a lot more categories, a lot more themes, a lot more scriptures, I think, as well. And Susan is the queen of reverse engineering, reading texts and figuring out what scriptures would go with them. We have a bunch of new ways to search in terms of sacraments or special occasions. We will have the ability to search by instrument as well. So if you have a flute player in a few weeks and you want to see what hymns have descants or flute parts, for example, you'll be able to find it by that. You can, I believe the term is stack the filters. So you can gradually filter more and more and more until you're getting exactly what you need. So if you start with a very broad scope and it's just you're returning too many results, you can gradually clarify what you're looking for. You can also figure out what kind of music you're looking for. Maybe you're just looking for a really short sung response. Well, you can filter for that. Maybe you're looking for a round. You can filter for that. lots more themes, as I mentioned. And I think too, the advantage of the search engine is that many hymns will fit in several different seasons. And now you can find that. You don't just flip to the Easter section or to whatever section and find that hymn only right there. You'll find it tagged in a few different ways and then be able to search more hymns that way. You can search by language. You can search by musical difficulty. And we'll be able to search by voicing as well. So if you need a 3-part thing, or you only have sopranos and altos in your choir this week or something like that, you can search by all those things as well. So I think it's a lot more robust.
So you're searching Voices United, of course. What else are you searching?
You'll be searching Voices United and more voices at this point. We're also just on the cusp of adding the French hymnal, Nos Voix Unies. That'll be coming online shortly. And then as we're talking about adding subsequent issues, back issues of Gathering, you'll also be able to find some of our older hymn books, the United Church hymn books that we trust. All God's Children Sing, for example. We're planning on getting that one in. And we'll go back to Songs of the Gospel, for example, and add that one in. So it'll be a really complete search function across so many of the United Church resources that we already have.
So what we're seeing now really is only the beginning of something that's going to continue to grow over the next several years.
Exactly. Yeah. And the other thing that you'll be able to search as well is some of the music that appears in Gathering. So up until now, we have asked people to only use the pieces that are published in Gathering, usually for the time period that the magazine covers. So if it's Pentecost 1 for a certain year, then that's really the only time you're supposed to use those pieces, unless the composer has given access otherwise. So as we put in back issues of Gathering and current issues of Gathering, we're asking those authors and composers permission to just keep them up there. And so you'll end up finding new music that will just be there and will stay up, that can be accessed at any time.
So music that's not in any of our hymn books and maybe not even in a paper magazine.
Exactly. And maybe not even people who've had things published before anywhere. And that's a wonderful thing of Gathering too, is that we receive and then we figure out how we can use the material. And it's always lovely to include new authors, new composers, new prayer writers, et cetera, et cetera. So please, yeah, as Susan said, I'll reiterate, send stuff in to us. The magazine is only as good as you make it.
And of course, in the works now, there's this new hymn resource that we keep hearing about, Then Let Us Sing. What are they going to be connected into this resource too?
They will indeed. And I don't know if Lydia would like to speak a little bit more of that. She knows a little bit more of the background than I do at this point. I've been so laser focused on GatheringWorship.ca that I'm a little out of the loop. Lydia?
For sure. So when you find whatever hymn you want on GatheringWorship.ca, you can then go to Then Let Us Sing to get a digital copy of it. So the Then Let Us Sing platform will have a PDF of the hymn that you can download and use as you need. And when you go to Then Let Us Sing, your subscription covers the cost of your copyright. So if you download it, you have permission to use it.
Thanks, Lydia. While you're here, there are some questions about pricing and how expensive is this going to be for congregations. I don't know whether any of the three of you have comments you want to make verbally about that.
Yeah, so in terms of Then Let Us Sing, it's going to be cheaper for you than what you're currently paying for your subscription. So the subscription to Then Let Us Sing is actually your one license subscription. And because we're doing this all together, we're going to have about a 10% discount to collectively.
Discount off one license, yeah.
Off of one
I think
license.
the questions I was asking were about the pricing to get a subscription to Gathering Worship.
Oh, so the Gathering subscription is 2-tiered at the moment. You have a $75 subscription that will give you online access and a print copy, or so online and print, two different things there. Or you have the $100 subscription that will give you 1 online access and 2 print copies. And that really helps us to, well, it helps us to keep the ship running as we're doing, and realizing that even the cost of mailing has gone up and the cost of paper has gone up. And we really want to make sure that we can continue to provide people the print copy, because we know that's important, and the online access. So we tried our best to keep it at a low cost point, but to keep the quality and the work and the curation that we've been working on. So I realize that it is a jump, and I do hope that people will bear with us, as the cost of paper is a jump in itself.
So that's the cost of the Gathering Worship. When Then Let Us Sing comes online, you're recommending people purchase that and give up their one license, because Then Let Us Sing will replace your one license.
It is one license. Yeah.
It is one license.
It is
so
one license.
We're partnering with one license.
We've partnered with GIA Publications and Hope Publications. So we've partnered with the leaders in both fields. So
there you go. So there's the commercial for 2025, and we'll be hearing more about that, Lydia. I know. I mean, I know there are even some webinars coming up in the spring about that, and a variety of different things. But and yes, it'll include the one license podcast license as well.
That's right. So that one license is fully based on your congregation. So it's based on congregational size and usage. So what your congregation usually pays for your one license, you'll pay that a little bit less, and you'll have access to you'll have access to like 1,500 curated songs. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I'm going to draw us back to Gathering Worship tonight, rather than go on to Then Let Us Sing, but stay tuned, because there is exciting stuff coming on Then Let Us Sing, and that'll be unrolling soon. Tammy Jo, just before we go into Bill's demonstration of how all this works, tell us a little bit about copyright. This is the thing that gets us all into trouble, especially when we're streaming our services to YouTube, right?
Yeah.
What's the copyright resource? What's the connection into copyright in this resource, and how can that help?
Yeah, so when we were adding in all the hymns from our previous hymnals, we certainly went above and beyond to try to get new copyright, information, make sure everything was current and up to date. So that's all there. So when you search a hymn, you'll see what the copyright information is. And as well, then the connection with Then Let Us Sing, obviously covering by one license, that will be really, really helpful as well. And then the curated material that comes into Gathering will also be given copyright permission to use that. So there's all part and parcel. It's a huge multifaceted element. Copyright is, of course, over all our resources, and we've tried to pull in all the most current information that we could.
I need to say copyright is one of the issues I keep getting requests for a webinar about. Yep. And that we're in the process of getting legal opinions on what we can say, because we don't want to get it wrong.
Absolutely.
But this is a huge issue for church musicians across the whole country.
And it's just been amplified with COVID and with streaming and podcasting and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So absolutely, it's a huge justice issue that we've been working really diligently on, and I know you folks have been working on as well.
Before we invite Bill to give us kick the tires and show us how it works, anything that either of you two want to say or add? Anything we didn't cover here?
I think too, not only we've talked a lot about music, but I, in the last several years, have tried to expand the sort of music section to also include other arts. And that is going to be much more easy with GatheringWorship.ca, to add images and to add more poetry and to add, as Susan said, more dramas, all those kinds of things. So I think that's another advantage of, you'll get a lot more bonus material, I would say, with the website. That's, I think, a wonderful thing as well. And again, make everything searchable.
Cool. Susan, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, what I was thinking about, I was a school teacher before I came into ministry, and I always loved walking into the staff room and being able to bounce ideas off of other teachers and say, I'm dealing with this. What do you think? Or do you have materials on this? And it was one of the things I missed the most about ministry, was not having this big staff room of,
It's a lonely job sometimes, isn't it?
yeah,
Yeah.
And so for me, gathering is like that staff room where I can come in and look and see what other ideas and bounce off and say, oh, that's a neat thing. I want to interweave that with something else. And I think that's the treasure of gathering. So just reiterating, please submit your stuff. And if you have ideas or questions, sending it through to us, because we love to hear from you. It's what makes this rich.
And let me just add that you don't have to send it because we're asking for submissions for a certain season, for a certain theme, any of that kind of stuff. If you've used it and it's worked really well, send it. We'll file it. We'll put it in the right places. We'll curate it. We'll edit it, and just send it.
Yeah.
We'll do the rest.
Yeah, that's our job, to edit. So just send it in whatever form and we'll get back to you if there's questions. But yeah, and don't wait, send it now.
So I know that the magazine has been valuable, not just to people who are ordained, but to a lot of licensed lay worship leaders too. So I wanted to bring up Christine Jarrett just quickly. Christine is the course directory for the credentialing course for licensed lay worship leaders that we offer through United in Learning online. And Christine, I know that you've had people from your courses submitting stuff to Gathering, and you've seen how this is being used effectively by folks who aren't, professionally trained clergy with 35 years experience. Tell us a little bit about what you're seeing here.
I've been meeting with lay worship leaders for years now, and in a variety of different online contexts. And every time we would have a gathering or a meeting for any variety of reasons, somebody would inevitably mention that when we were talking about, okay, so what kind of resources are available, inevitably somebody would mention gathering. So when I was developing the curriculum for the online training course, I included asking the students to submit the portions of worship that they were crafting, to submit them to Gathering, to be included in that. And I did that for a number of reasons. I think it's important that people recognize that when you're leading worship, you aren't just out there, it's not just you and your congregation, that you're part of the communion of saints and a company of worship leaders, and that you're not out there on your own. And Gathering allows you to get a sense of that and to draw from that. I think it's also important for small congregations, which often are being led by lay worship leaders now, but I think it's important for small congregations also to recognize that they are not just 10 people meeting on a Sunday by themselves, that they are part of the body of Christ, the communion of saints. And when they use worship elements that come from all across the world, but especially all across the United Church of Canada, they then begin to get a sense that, we're part of something really big and very significant that they might not get otherwise. So it's been great for the students. They've been delighted that the work they have been doing is being recognized as being good enough to be published, and but also it's been, I think, good for the congregations and generally for the company of worship leaders to benefit from some of the beautiful prayers and worship elements that these folk are crafting.
Well, what a wonderful way to talk about the ministry of the whole people of God, right?
Mm.
Ministry is not just something done by people who wear their collars backwards.
That's right.
Christine.
Yeah.
I'd like to bring up Bill Gallard now. Bill is the web manager at the General Counsel office and a colleague of mine in the communications department. This is Bill's baby. I think this is the one he's had most fun developing of all the different websites that he's sort of overseen over the past 10 years. And when he and I talked about this last week, I could hardly shut him up. He was so excited about all the different features. So, Bill, show us your baby. Tell us what you like most and what you're most excited about.
Sure, thanks, Steve. I'm actually really excited to be here. This has been a passion project of mine that's been sitting there simmering for about 16 years, I guess I figured out when we started first having conversations about this. And it took a long time to come to fruition, but I think that gave it some time to develop and mature a bit so we could figure out what would work well with the technology. So it's been some time, but I am very happy that it has finally launched. And it was a huge effort to get it to go live. So thank you to Susan and Tammy Jo and Lydia and everyone who worked on this, because it was a marathon, but it was one that was enjoyable because so many people were striving toward it and working so hard to get this, to make it a reality. So I'm going to give you a quick demo of the platform. If I think I can screen share here.
Should be able
and
to.
Forgive me, I am still adjusting to Zoom versus Teams. There we go.
No,
Can you see my screen now?
sure can. Looks
There
great.
we go. Okay, so when you first log in, you're going to end up on your dashboard. It's basically your intro page to the site. It gives you some key details. We've kept with a very simple design on purpose to try and keep it straightforward. The one thing we really like about Gathering is that it's a very simple, not overly frilled design, but very easy to navigate and find all the different content and all the nuggets. So we wanted to kind of reflect that in the online space as well. The one thing I will point out that's really easy to see is your subscription details. So you can find out whether it's still active, when it's going to expire, etc. On the new platform, it will automatically renew, or at least it'll give you a week's warning saying it's going to auto renew. And so you won't have to keep remembering to send in that check or send in the piece of paper that used to get mailed with Gathering. It will just happen automatically in the system now. So you can certainly opt out at any time, and when you get that reminder email, just click the link, but certainly it makes it a lot easier to manage. So the dashboard gives you all of the most common tools that we thought people would look for. So there's create a service, your own services, my favorites, and this handy dandy submit content to Gathering. I'm going to come back to some of these things in a bit more detail, but I just wanted to give you an idea. You can scroll down the page. Here's some highlights of some of the newest things that we've uploaded to the site. Generally, this is by the most recent, so it may not be connected to this current week, but it is the most current content that's been added to the site in any one of these categories.
Well, let me pause for a minute. Just scroll back. Somebody in the chat earlier was asking about week by week resources. It looks like you're still providing them, and there's the one for Transfiguration Sunday in year A.
Correct. Yep.
That's not coming up for another 3 months, so you're way ahead of the game.
We are. This is the one thing that's been a fun project with Gathering, as they plan so far out. Tammy Jo and Susan have this stuff so well in hand with Lydia, and I think it's one of the successes of the magazine is that it is available for the planning period, so that you're not, it used to be that Saturday nights was the busiest day of our website, especially in the worship section for ministers. You could see a huge spike around 8 p.m. across the country usually. So I'm hoping Gathering will assist with that getting a little bit earlier in the game. But if not, there's some great resources to work from, even if it is Saturday night at 8 p.m. So there is the weekly service. You'll notice in the book, it is currently called Sunday by Sunday. We chose weekly service simply because it's a bit more inclusive of everything through the week and some additional content that the website is bringing to light as well that may not make it into the print edition, partly because of that 3 to 4 month window that we're working ahead of schedule. So that's the one piece I wanted to highlight there. Again, all the most common tools for the sections in the magazine that you're familiar with are tiles down at the bottom. We've also made those same ones available through the tools menu at the top, so you can access it from any page, anywhere on the site. You can skip to, oh, I need a music for this, or I'm looking for an idea, which is what Sparks are for, prayers, complete services, all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to give you a demo. The one main thing that I think came up over and over again is the power of search. The backbone.
I couldn't stop them talking about search. So show us how to do a search.
The backbone of this platform really is the search system. So there's a few different ways you can do it. The simplest one is just click on the magnifying glass and search for something you're looking for. So journey. Search will search through all of those different facets that they were talking about, all the different tagging that has been done for music, blogs, prayers, complete services, Sparks, all of it. So it may seem like a bit of a weird mishmash when you search for such generic terms, but that's because we're bringing up anything related to this topic, both in the content of the item, but also the way it's tagged. So that's kind of the concept behind it. So I'm going to show you an example. So say you're just looking for inspiration for Advent, which is a pretty common thing. And you'll have to excuse my internet connection is a little bit slow, of course, because I'm trying to present tonight. So you would simply click on Christian calendar and click on Advent. So that will show you everything in the system, all music, all prayers, all Sparks, everything related to Advent that we have in the entire system right now. But really, you only care about the stuff because it's year C. So I'm going to go down to liturgical year and click on year C. So that will filter those results down quite a bit. And this is referring to, I think Tammy Jo referenced to the stacking of the way you can do filtering in the search. And this, so every time you select another thing, you're kind of making that really long list of thousands of items to get smaller. So it just went from thousands to hundreds. And now if you're looking for something, say you only want to do French because you're doing something in French this Sunday, then you can click to French and you will get just the items that we have in French for Advent for year C. As said, this collection will continue to expand over time as we start to add more back issues and also as we continue adding new issues to Gathering, because that just never ends either. Just new content coming in all the time. So you can stack these filters in any different way. This is just a simple example. And if you want to go back and go, oh, actually, I didn't mean French. If I just wanted something different, then you can do that. Or if I just want music, well, this is mostly music, but there's prayers mixed in, there's weekly services. So you can also filter by the type. And there you go. So there's all the weekly services for Advent for year C that are in the system. So there's a variety of different ways you can search, as they were alluding to. There's not just one way. There's almost a dozen different ways that you can find pretty much any piece of content that's available in the system. So I'm going to come back to my dashboard and give you an example. I know one of the common things we get was, I want to find prayers by David Sparks. That's a pretty common thing that we get, or any author really that contributes to Gathering on a regular basis. So I'm going to go to Tools and click on Prayers. So that gives me all of the prayers in the whole system. There are a lot of them. Tammy Jo has been very busy, and Susan. And the way you can do this, there's two different ways that are the easiest. You can click on Author, and you can either scroll through this list looking for somebody, or you can also just start typing. So you can type David, for instance. And there we go, David Sparks. So that is all of the prayers that we have in the system by David Sparks currently. You could filter by theme and other things if you wish as well. Special occasion, all of these. It just continues to narrow down every time you select another option. The other way you could do this, if you're not feeling like scrolling through the list, is you can simply search for David Sparks. And you will find anything David Sparks has put in the system, or that we have from David Sparks in the system.
So Bill, what if I'm looking through this whole list of David Sparks prayers and I see one and I think, gee, that would be good for Good Friday, but you know, it's Advent right now. Is there any way that I can put a tag on it or a bookmark or something so that I can go and find it again quickly without stumbling on it?
Absolutely. So this was one of the things that I thought was really one of the things we really wanted the system to have. So there's two different options. You can click on the little add to favorites thing. It's add to bookmarks, add to favorites, same kind of idea. And that goes into your personal list of your favorite things. So you can use that as a way to put the things that you want to come back to and want to remember about, or things like a Lord's Prayer or a communion service or something that you use on a regular basis and you just don't want to have to search through the whole system. You can add it to your favorites. And when you do that, I'll show you what happens. You'll notice it gets filled in, so you can tell that it's one of your favorites. It's solid, not outlined anymore. And also, you can just click on My Favorites. And that is everything I have favorited in the system. And one of the really neat things I like about this feature, this is my test user, so I don't have a lot yet, but as you start to add more and more to this, of the stuff that you really like and you want to go through, you can also filter your own favorites using the exact same filters that are available for the rest of the site. So if you've got 300 things in here in your favorites because you just want to find that thing and that was for Advent. So, I can just filter to Advent. Oh yeah, there's that thing that I was looking for. So your favorites is kind of like your own miniature version of the catalog. And you can add and remove from that as much as you want, and search and do all the great things that you can do. It's exactly the same search platform. It's just filtered to your stuff, basically. So it's a really powerful platform in that regard. And if you want to just go back to the regular search, you can just hit reset. And that's, again, all your stuff. The other one I think was mentioned, we have a lot of effort went into tagging content for cultural origin. This is something that we do not have in any index that I'm aware of anywhere else. And it was quite a large effort on Tammy Jo and Tillman's part this summer to tag all of the music, and as much as we could, the prayers as well, for cultural origin. So if you want to, for an example of this would be, if you wanted to find music from, let's say, Brazil, just because I know we have some Brazilian music in here. You could go to additional filters and you can choose culture. And you can do, if I could spell, Brazil. So that is all the music that we have with a cultural origin of Brazil in the system. And you can do that for any of those cultures that are listed, and there are many of them. I was actually quite surprised to see the diversity of music we have already in our hymnals, even before Sing 2025 becomes a thing, or sorry, Then Let Us Sing becomes a thing, that is actually in the wild. So it was an interesting piece of this project, and it's something that is unique to online for sure.
Can I hop in there for a second,
Yep.
Bill? So if you happen to be searching for Brazil, that might be the author, it might be the composer, it might be a translator, it might be a descant writer, it could be anything. So it really widens that gap of cultural origin for what you might be looking for as well.
Definitely.
So I'm aware of time, and there's more that we want to share. Let me jump a little bit in the agenda, because one of the things I kept hearing from all three of you about, well, four, including Lydia, is this ability to build a whole service. Talk to us about that. How does that work? Because it sounds like there's not a lot of people who've even figured that out yet.
No, and it's one of those things that I think will grow as people learn how to use the system or understand how they can use the system. Much like you could do bookmarks for anything, you can also add to a service. So I'm going to go to the My Services page. I've already got a service alpha, but I'm going to create a new one. Just say I want to work on Advent 2, because I'm planning a little bit ahead today. And the service date is going to be December 11th this year, I think it is, and I'm the author. Most of these fields are optional, but you can fill them in just to make your life easier later. You can use the body to make comments to yourself or notes about whatever you want to. You can add all of the same categorization that we have on the front end to search for. So theme, Christian calendar, music, whatever, or liturgical year. You can add this to your own services so that as you add a whole bunch of them over time, it's easier to filter your content again, but you don't have to. They're all optional. If you want to use it, it's there. If you don't, it's great. particularly the liturgical year came up a few times because it's like, I want to know whether this was this Advent or last Advent or next Advent. So it was a useful thing to add. And then you can just click save. And once you've created a service, you can add whatever you want to it. So we can go back to, say, music again. And this came up quite a few times. Actually, the Gathering Advisory Board had some really good insights as to how to make this useful. So there is a talk about going through the database and just being inspired by something they found, and it's not for this Sunday, but I really want to add this for like 3 months from now. So you can click on the Add to Service, select whatever service you want, and hit Add. And you can do that with any of the content in the site, even if it's a blog. And blogs are, do you want to correct me if I'm wrong again here, Susan? Blogs are kind of the forward, the epilogue, and some of the other content throughout the issue that is gathering.
Yeah, that's right. It's the postlude, the prelude, Lydia's worship column, and then we have all the other worship columns under worship column. So there's columns and there's blogs, but they're all on the site.
Yep. So you can add any of this content that you want to any service that you've created.
So if I have an account and my music director has an account, can I start building a service and then have her add other things to it?
Absolutely, you can. Yep. So whether you can collaborate back and forth in a conversation thread. You can't collaboratively build a service yet. We are working on that. But you can certainly share that with them and have a conversation thread about this. Oh, I think this. Oh, I think that. And as soon as my internet catches up to what I'm trying to do, I will show you how to do that. Inevitably, it's when I'm trying to show people something. I'm going to add that to my Advent service, just so I have some content. So if I go back to my services and click on Advent 2, so here you'll see some of the categories I added, liturgical year, et cetera, is there. But also I've added the two hymns to it. If there are prayers, anything else, they would also be listed here. And you can click on it and go actually get the content. I don't think I actually clicked through to any of these, so I should show you what's there. So this is where all that tagging came in that we were talking about. So every piece of music, every piece of content on the system has a whole bunch of different ways
to tags on just one hymn.
And
what, 25 or 30 tags on that one hymn.
And you can click on almost any of them. So anything that's got a little underline on it, you can actually click on it. So if you want to find everything related to season of Christmas, just like we were searching before, you can do the same thing by clicking on the tag there.
So Beth is asking, it doesn't actually create your bulletin then.
No.
Your church admin would still have to type that up into whatever format your church uses.
That's correct. But the one thing you can do is, so if you do share via email here, this would pop open my email program, which isn't going to share because it's not shared on my screen. And you could, it'll send the link directly to whoever you're trying to share with. So if this is your music director, your collaborator on the service, whatever you're trying to do, you can definitely just click on that. If they're a subscriber, they'll get a link, they can follow that, and then you can actually do comments back and forth. So you can create a subject line. If you've ever done like a threaded conversation online in different forums and different sites, this works exactly the same way. So you can go back and forth commenting on things as you're creating a service together, etc. And they'll get an email about it. The other thing you can do, if you don't have an account, but you want to share this with your worship team or whoever, you can actually click on download a PDF. I'm not going to do it right now because it'll take a couple minutes to generate with all this stuff, and my slow internet connection. But what it'll do is it actually takes all of those information from that page. So in this case, the prayer, the music, the other prayer that I had there, and it'll put all of that information into one PDF. So you can then copy and paste. So if you want to send that to your person who's building your bulletin, they can copy and paste all the hymn titles, they can put in the prayer titles, all of that information is included in the PDF. I will give one caveat. The PDF's a little bit long and messy right now. It does work, but we're working on cleaning that up so it's a bit tighter and not going to waste so much paper if you're trying to print it.
Bill, just so with the prayers, it will print the whole prayer.
Yes, it will.
with the music, if it's a hymn, it's just going to give the title of the hymn. We haven't put all the hymn words and that into Gathering Worship. That's where Then Let Us Sing is going to come in.
Correct. And that's partly because we get into copyright issues. We talked about doing that. We wanted to, but it wasn't quite, it wasn't going to be cleared. So, and Then Let Us Sing will take care of that for us. So that will be an option that is coming, and they will marry together quite well in the end. Or at least that is the goal.
So 2 more things before we let you go, Bill, because we could have you demonstrate for another hour. And that would be really fun, but we did covenant with folks for shorter time than that. So I'd like you to show us how to submit stuff. If they've got a new prayer, or if they've got a suggestion for the website, or they've got a new hymn that they've written, how do they get it to you?
Sure. So I'm going to give you 2 ways to do it. If you're a subscriber and you're in the system, you can simply go back to your dashboard, or it will be there automatically when you log in, and click on the Submit Content to Gathering. And if you're not a subscriber, if you're still on the fence but still want to send us content, we are happy to receive it. At any time, even if you're not logged in, there's a Submit Content in the footer. So you can absolutely do that even if you're not a subscriber, and we will happily take your content and review it. So you click on the purple button, and it gives you the submission form. Most of your information should already be filled in because you're a subscriber to the site, so you don't have to fill it all in again. You can upload a file if you want to. That's how we prefer to receive content. If it's a prayer, if it's a worship outline, any of that kind of stuff, we can accept all those file formats that are accepted there or noted there. If you want to make any notes to us about this, about when we think it would fit, any comments, any concerns, certainly put them in there. The other thing you can do, we no longer require an attachment to this page. We did originally. If you want to just send us feedback, like that comment that I think was mentioned earlier, if I think this hymn should have this tag on it, or this could be used at this time of year instead, absolutely feel free to just click on that Submit Content. And content can be, I think this content should be tagged this way, absolutely send that to us, and we'll happily take care of that. And we certainly review those. It's one of those things, we did our best to tag things as much as we could going through, but we're inevitably going to miss a few. So definitely use that form and submit them back to us. And you'll get an email copy of this once it's submitted, confirming all the information that you had sent to us as well.
And I see that release statement at the bottom. That's also going to be really important. It's the copyright headache thing again, right? This is my own work. You have to sort of intentionally click that.
Yes, you do.
So what if I don't have Bill in my back pocket to show me around? How have you got any FAQs or videos or things that can show me what you didn't get a chance to show us tonight?
Absolutely. We've recently, probably in the last 2 months or so, been working to expand our frequently asked questions. So if you scroll down to the bottom of any page, and again, this is available with or without a subscription currently, you can click on frequently asked questions. I do encourage you to take a look through here, even if you are a subscriber and have looked through the site a bit. This might twig some things for you that just hadn't clicked, or you hadn't gotten to, or you weren't quite understanding. We've rewritten this section quite a bit, and there's videos for several of them now. So how do I find prayers from the magazine? And Lydia has done a great job voicing and going through a bunch of our videos for us. They're very short. All of them are under 5 minutes. Most of them are under 2. So they're great. There's a whole bunch of them on here, and we'll be continuing to expand on this over the coming months as well to have more additional. So Sunday by Sunday, how do I find my Sunday by Sunday? It's a common question we get. There's a whole video. It's about 2 minutes that shows you how to work that on the Gathering site. So quick and easy.
So it all looks very exciting, but what about people who aren't very computer savvy? What if they break it?
You can't break it. That's the one beauty of this platform. We have designed it to be as dynamic as possible, but it's very difficult to break, actually. So it's a pretty standard platform. It's built on the Drupal open source platform, but it's designed to be pretty robust. It would be very, very difficult for you to break the system. So log in, play around, have fun, click on all the buttons, see what they do. You can't break anything.
And so
if you get into trouble, send us an email. We'll help you.
Last question here from Cole. Where are the hymns for this Sunday listed?
For this Sunday, you can go to weekly services. And if I pick liturgical dates for, what is this week? 6th to, let's say, the 20th. So that would be 22nd after Pentecost. Your music for this week is all of these right here.
There you go.
And the question was, why aren't they divided by scripture the way they are in the print magazine? That would be very, very complicated and ask so much more to the whole website. And we wanted you to be able to find the hymns. So this is where the website and the print magazine work together. Because then in the print magazine, they're listed by scripture. Here, they're listed for you in order that they are in the book. And the two work together. But if you click on any of these hymns, it's going to give you all the information about the hymn. And then if you really want another hymn, say about aging to go with this, you can click, go back to where you were, Bill. So if you want another hymn about animals, you can go over to themes and click animals, and then you're going to get more hymns and other worship material on animals. So we couldn't do both, but that's where the print and the website work together, and it's a rich resource together.
Important question from Daniel Hayward here. Tell us about accessibility, Bill. Does this work with screen readers and accessibility standards and all of that?
Absolutely. We were very stringent with our development team on this. The entire site should be fully compliant to what is called WCAG 2.0 AA. That's a fancy long way to say it should work with almost all accessibility technologies. And if there are any exceptions that you run into, please do let us know. As I said, the site is an evolving work in progress and will continue to be indefinitely. This is not a one and done platform for us. It's something that's going to continue to grow and evolve over time, both technologically and content-wise. So if you run into any issues, please do let us know, but out of the box, it should be fully compatible with all major accessibility technologies.
And Richard wants to know if he can still send you stuff by email instead of using this form.
I think they would happily take content in any way we can get it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
We are over time, and so I do want to move us along. But Bill, last kick at the can. Anything you want to add to, or final words here?
Nope, just subscribe, check it out. If you get stuck, give us an email. The UCRD team or any of us in Gathering or Web would be more than happy to help you through any issues. And send us those submissions. It's only as good, as they said, it's only as good as the content that's provided.
Mm-hmm. So there's a few questions coming up in the chat about how many people are allowed to access a subscription. Can I get a subscription for my church and then have my music director and my admin also use the same credentials?
We can't really stop people from doing what they need to do. I think the website is set up for one person for an account. It's sort of like Seasons of the Spirit or some other resources you might have where a Sunday school teacher is set up for their Sunday school classroom. So we really hope that people will have one subscription for themselves, because that way they can build their library, and when they go to a different community, like they'll have it with them for a while, and they can share resources back and forth. That being said, it is like any other platform, right? So you have how your church decides to use your subscription is how your church decides to use your subscription. It works best when people have their own so that they can collaborate and share things back and forth.
I think it's also important to say too that you folks are very responsive to the community. And as the community evolves ways to use the resource, I suspect you will evolve to respond. That you've put together your best sense of how it's going to work really well right now. But you have no idea what this is going to look like in 3 years, because it's going to change as much as the magazine has changed over the last 48.
And also as technology changes, as is pointed out, we've gone from Gestetner and Staples to this. And we worked really hard, worked with the Gathering Advisory Board, with Bill and Ray and the team, and looked at what are the options available to us that keep it within reasonable cost. Yes, we had a raise in cost. We haven't raised the cost for ages on Gathering, but trying to keep a reasonable cost, but give you the most options. And we did that within the parameters that we felt possible. But technology is going to keep changing. So yeah, we can keep saying, Bill, can we do this now? Can we do this?
And usually the answer is, with some effort, yes.
You know, I'm a Johnny come lately to this. You guys have been working on this project for several years, and you just roped me in at the end of the summer to help share it with the church. I need to say your passion is infectious. All four of you are so excited about this project and what it can do and how it is going to streamline and change the way that we build worship services and use a wider and richer variety of resources. So thank you. Thank you for sharing that passion tonight. Thank you for all the energy that you've put into this whole project, and for how far you've brought it along to date, and for your commitment to keep refreshing it as we move forward. It's a privilege to hear you and to be with you tonight. So thank you.
I've got my bubbly cranberry ginger ale here to raise a toast to all the Gathering community, because it's all together that this is a rich resource. So thank you, everybody, and we celebrate with all of you. To Gathering.
To Gathering, and to each of you, many, many thanks.